This is Gene from CommerceBlend, and just to let you know, we'll be sharing a recording of today's call. If you have any questions that arise as we're going through today's session, there's a Q&A tab at the bottom. Please make this as interactive as you'd like and type in any questions that come up. Just so you know, CommerceBlend, for you, those of you that are not familiar, CommerceBlend is a community of merchants and e-commerce thought leaders that are designed to give you a competitive advantage in growing your online business. And what we try to do is find partners within the ecosystem that can have the biggest impact on your business. And what bigger area for impact, especially these days, than around shipping. So today we're very happy to present ShipperHQ. We have Meredith and Daniel from ShipperHQ today. And ShipperHQ really is the standard for managing shipping-based pricing, promotions, and delivery options. And I will let them expound upon all that as to how you can best manage your shipping experience in 2020. So without further ado, I will hand the reins over to Daniel.
Well, thanks, Gene. Appreciate the introduction there. Yeah, we're happy to be with you today, and hopefully can share some information that'll be helpful. I'm Daniel Ziegler. I have been with ShipperHQ since 2013. Wear a few different hats here, but work especially with our partners and focus on our relationships with carriers, logistics providers, as well as e-commerce platforms. And with me also is Meredith Hightower, who heads up our SI or agency partner program. That's her focus and her role.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
So I'm going to just start with a brief introduction of who we are. So we got started back in 2008 under the brand name Webshop Apps. And we're producing shipping extensions for the Magento e-commerce platform. We had over 60 extensions that we produced, all of them really focused on helping retailers manage the shipping rates and options that they offer to their customers. In 2014, we pulled together all of that functionality from all those extensions into a single product under the name ShipperHQ, and that has been our focus since then. So ShipperHQ is a SaaS product, which means also that we're able to go cross-platform with it. So where previous Magento, we now are on BigCommerce, Shopify, WooCommerce, Zoe. We're launching on Salesforce Commerce Cloud in about a month and a half here as well. So that's a little bit of a background for where we come from. What we wanted to share with you specifically today, and some of this I think will be still relevant, and some of this may be relevant in a couple months from now. But what we've been seeing is a continuing trend of customer expectations growing. So there are providers out there like Amazon and Walmart, etc., who are providing their customers with fast and free shipping options with alternate pickup locations. So instead of having it delivered to your door, you have it delivered to a locker or a local pickup point. They're showing delivery dates and times, and more customers are coming to expect these things from any store that they shop with online. So these are some numbers from a study a couple of years ago at this point by a company called Metapack, who are based over in the UK. We see these numbers continuing kind of on this trend. So every year, these numbers tick up a little bit. Customers are expecting to have at least one free option when they get to checkout. They also customers are becoming more and more likely to abandon the shopping cart because of unsatisfactory delivery options. They'll go shop somewhere else if they can't get it in the speed they want or the type of service they want. So that's kind of the challenge that a lot of retailers are facing, and kind of continues to be a challenge today. Additionally, another challenge that contributes to this is the options that are built into e-commerce platforms tend to be very limited. So they support small package rating, but if you are shipping B2B or shipping larger goods, you're not going to find native support for things like freight carriers. The support for dimensional rating, which is a key aspect of getting accurate shipping rates, is limited across most platforms if it exists at all. And then delivery dates, which in that slide I just showed you, you can see how significant those are for customers. Unfortunately, very limited, and if they are supported at all, tends to be difficult to make sure that those are accurate. So merchants are kind of stuck a little bit in between a bit of a rock and a hard place, where customers are demanding more of them, but at the same time, the options that are available kind of built into their e-commerce platforms tend to be kind of limited. And that's really where ShipperHQ comes into play. So we understand why e-commerce platforms tend to have limited shipping. They need to go for lowest common denominator. That makes sense. But unfortunately, that means that there are a very large portion of merchants who don't have the options they need out of the box with the e-commerce platforms, and that's really where we come into play. So our goal is to help retailers solve what we call the big customer experience challenges in shipping, providing clear and concise shipping information at checkout, giving customers more options or more convenient options, especially in shipping, delivery, and pickup. So it's one thing to show a whole wall of options. It's another thing to make sure that you're showing options that are relevant to that customer, relevant to the products that they're buying, the location they're shipping to, et cetera. Helping to eliminate unexpected undercharges and fees. So this is key, and really part of this is just accuracy, making sure that the shipping rates are accurate. And then finally, delighting customers with additional options and promotions. So that's kind of what we'll focus on these things today, and we've tailored this a little bit to kind of what's going on right now. I think it's a message that remains relevant. So there's a lot of I won't go through all these kind of ShipperHQ specific things, but there's a lot of options that need to be considered. A lot of different ways to display these things to customers. Delivery date selection is important. Being able to show things like free shipping alongside expedited shipping is important. And we'll get into kind of the meat of things here with kind of what's going on with shipping right now. What options should merchants be looking at? What options do they have, and what options are we seeing coming down the line, within the next few months? So right now, things are obviously changing pretty quickly. As things change, retailers are being forced to try to keep up with those changes when it comes to fulfillment. So we know that storefront retail has been significantly impacted. There is some impact in distribution centers and carriers, although carriers continue to operate, which is great. Distribution centers are critical pieces of infrastructure, and the majority of those continue to operate. The supply chain is slowed down a little bit, and stay-at-home orders right now are kind of impacting options that are relevant for customers. So our encouragement to merchants has always been be proactive. That becomes even more critical these days, because as your customer demands change, you need to be able to not just react to those, but as much as possible kind of anticipate the coming needs, anticipate those things that customers are going to need, a couple months down the road, a couple weeks down the road, and be able to react to those quickly. So there are a number of options that are outside of what you might call standard shipping options that have become more critical in the past few weeks. These are things that we have seen growing in popularity among customers for years, especially the past 5 or 6 years. These continue to grow in popularity. And as we go forward, we're expecting those to continue to be popular. So for retailers who are able to adjust to kind of changing times and start rolling these options out to their customers, that's going to be a key aspect in for some retailers in their survival, for other retailers in their ability to be successful, regardless of kind of what changes might come their way. So we'll go through a few of these. These are really great options for any retailer to consider. The first is local or same-day delivery. So with with this option, what you've got is you've got more of kind of the experience that you have if you're ordering for food delivery. If you're familiar with like Uber Eats or DoorDash or Skip the Dishes or one of these other food delivery services, there are several providers out there. One of those is Deliv in the US. There's others across the US, there's others internationally who are doing that same type of service, but for packages. So if your warehouse is in a metro area, or if even your retail store is in a metro area and you're able to fulfill out of that, you can have drivers stop by that location, pick up a package and go straight to your customer and drop it off on the same day, which is a fantastic option for your customers to be able to get same day delivery. And it also is a fantastic option for you to kind of continue to meet customer needs. So we encourage everybody to kind of take a look at that. A lot of merchants might be kind of scared away from that, worried about, looking at some of the reports or some of the news stories out there about how many billions of dollars players like Amazon and Walmart have poured into these kind of things. That's not really necessary. There are providers out there that can have a retailer up and running and offering same day delivery within 4 or 5 hours to have an account set up. We've helped a few merchants over the past couple of weeks do that. And it really just kind of opens your options. So instead of relying on a small package carrier that's going to take your shipment to a hub and it's going to sit there overnight and be sorted, and then it's going to go out to the customer. If you're getting orders from local customers, same day delivery via any of the same day providers that are out there is going to be a worthwhile option to look into. The next is in-store or curbside pickup. There are many possible names for this: click and collect, buy online, pick up in store, et cetera, et cetera. But what it comes down to is using your storefront as a pickup location for customers. Now, in some areas of the country right now, that's not possible unless you are in kind of a critical vertical, where a pharmacy, grocery store, that kind of thing. But the things change quickly. Those options are going to open up again at some point. It's worth being kind of aware and kind of having a plan in place there. What it does is it allows you to take your retail storefront, which may have been impacted by a drop in foot traffic, and turn that into a location where customers are able to pick up. So it allows you to kind of make use of the inventory that's there. It allows you to make use of your staff members that are there in a new way. And like I said, there are restrictions in place. Pay attention to those. As those restrictions change over the coming months, we're encouraging everybody to kind of consider doing this if you have a physical location. The third option is to look into what's called third-party fulfillment, or 3PL. A lot of small businesses out there use like fulfillment by Amazon if they sell on Amazon. That's all right. There are definitely some downsides to that. But there are other options out there as well that can do at least as good a job. There are providers out there that will allow a merchant to ship a pallet of goods, and then that provider will handle all of the pick, pack, and ship operations. So if you find your warehouse or your distribution center being impacted by some of the changes that are going on right now, definitely worth considering at least having some of your products at a third-party fulfillment location. Again, as with same-day delivery, I think a lot of people get scared off from this by just kind of fear of complexity or fear of cost. The reality is that the cost is generally pretty reasonable, and for most of these providers, the cost is going to be based on actual orders going out the door. So until you're doing business, the cost is pretty minimal. And then the time to get up and running is generally a few days, enough time to kind of get some products there, to get those into their system, and then you can be up and running and having them fulfilling orders on your behalf. It's just a way to build in a little bit of redundancy if either you're already being impacted by maybe some staff staying home or things like that, and you need to have an additional option. It's a relatively quick way to spin up additional capacity. And then finally, we're really encouraging retailers to kind of find some experts to talk to, find some folks that can help them kind of navigate what's going on. I'll put a slide up in a couple minutes with some resources that are available to kind of help with that. But there are experts out there that are not going to try to sell things to you. There are people out there who are happy to kind of share their experience with you and give you some information and insight on what options are available, what you should consider, and to do that without kind of a contract in hand or a heavy-handed sale coming right behind that. In terms of the current status, I just want to run through this real quickly. We talked about curbside and in-store being restricted in some states for non-essential businesses. Just be aware of that. You kind of keep an eye on that. Especially local government offices are putting out information. Keep an eye on those things. The carriers are continuing to operate. Those are deemed essential services. They will continue to operate. But their guarantees have been dropped. So keep an eye on carrier status. If you use UPS, they've got a good status page. If you use FedEx, they've got a good status page. Worth keeping an eye on kind of what's changing with what they're offering. They're not doing kind of guaranteed timelines for deliveries, but they are continuing to make deliveries. Some things have slowed down a little bit, but they're continuing to operate. Another recommendation here is, especially for those areas that have kind of stay home orders in place, if you're shipping to a business, it's more critical than ever to kind of confirm that business is open and accepting shipments. So we're encouraging everybody that ships B2B to reach out to the recipient of the order before they ship it and just double check to make sure that they're still accepting orders. Just so you don't end up with things like returns or undeliverables. Can save a lot of headache there. And then I will say for international trade right now, that is pretty significantly speed limited. So that it's something that is super critical for kind of the operation of the country, the operation of the world economy. That will get back up to speed very quickly as soon as it can. But right now it's speed limited. I'd encourage you to kind of talk to your carrier, talk to your shipping provider, and make sure that you're aware of any impacts on delivery speed, delivery commitments on that. I mentioned a couple resources that are available out there that we've kind of helped with. So we put together on our blog at ShipperHQ a number of guides for getting up and running with some of these options that I've talked about quickly. So these are things that we've got what's going on right now, and then we've got the future to look at. These are things that are worth knowing about, whether it's something that you do now or in the future. I think store pickup especially is a good one. So we've got an article on that. We've got an article on kind of getting up and running with same-day delivery, those kind of things. Check that out. That's a great resource. We've also been part of an initiative called offline-to-on.com, which is helping offline retailers get online as quickly as possible. One of the things that we're doing with that as well is we are compiling resources there. So later today or tomorrow, there'll be a page going up that has kind of a status summary for carriers, for example, and some links out to good resources on kind of how to set up additional shipping options and how to use different options to kind of continue with your business. ShipperHQ is also offering free or discounted subscriptions, and we're offering kind of no pressure consultations as well for any retailers that reach out to us. We're one of those companies that I mentioned earlier that we're not interested in a hard sell. We're interested in kind of talking to people and finding out what their situation is and working with them on kind of how best to help them navigate what's going on. That's true at all times. I think that's especially true right now, just with things changing pretty frequently. It's good to have some people on your side that are able to help out. So I think right now worth going to maybe a couple questions, if there are some questions, or Gene, if you've got any questions or areas that you'd like to dig into a little bit further.
I know there's, thanks, Dana. There is one question from the crowd. Would you suggest, let's see, what carriers to use? How does that work exactly? So it seems like you perhaps covered that, but I don't know if you want to touch on that anymore.
Yeah, I think the option of, or the choice of which carrier to use is something that's going to depend on a number of things, primarily on geographic area, and then the type of shipments and the type of recipient. So if you're shipping to businesses, then what you definitely want to do is you want to look at UPS and FedEx, one or the other one, whichever kind of gives you the best rate and the quickest routes for your specific geographic location. And then you probably also want to look at either working with LTL freight carriers directly. So there are a couple of hundred LTL freight carriers that will pick up palletized shipments, especially B2B orders. It's great to have kind of those the ability to get that cheaper shipping option of palletizing something and shipping it to your customer. Worth looking at those. There's also, if you are shipping larger shipments, one of the things you can get into with LTL freight is you can get into a difficulty, given that there are several hundred logistics providers out there doing LTL freight. Each one of them has a different lane that they're going to specialize in, or a different type of shipment they're going to specialize in. Some are going to be cheaper for certain shipments than others, et cetera, et cetera. It's worth considering a third-party logistics provider to help you with that as well. These are companies that will kind of aggregate rates from 60, 100, 200, whatever LTL freight carriers into and kind of bring those together and help you find the best option. So name drop a couple that we know that are pretty reputable: Echo Global Logistics, Retrans Freight, and Cerasis Freight. So that's CERASIS. Those are three examples of this kind of company that can help you really navigate LTL freight. For small package shipments, right now the most reliable carriers out there are going to actually be your local or regional carriers. The big global carriers are a bit bogged down right now. UPS and FedEx, not to say anything bad about them, it's just kind of they're dealing with essentially holiday traffic in the middle of certain team members not being available and at an unexpected time of the year. And so that does slow things down a little bit, despite their best efforts, and they're doing a great job. Kind of worth applauding them for that. But also right now, one of the things that means is that it's worth taking a little bit of time and going out and finding out who are your regional carriers. So in the Midwest, for example, there's a company called Speedy Delivery, which is reminiscent of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I think their delivery guy was Mr. Speedy or something. But anyway, Speedy Delivery is a good option in the Midwest. GSO in the Southwest, Lone Star Overnight, LSO in kind of the South Central part of the country. There's a number of them out there that are regional carriers that do a very good job. Their networks are seeing less volume right now than the larger carriers, so they've been less impacted by just a flood of shipments. So I definitely recommend taking a look at those. And then also some of these same day carriers. So if you have a warehouse, or if you have a location you're shipping out of that is within any of the major metro areas in the US, definitely take a look at like Deliv or any of these same day carriers that are out there. FedEx actually has a service for this, FedEx Same Day City, that's worth taking a look at, that operates in that way. So those are very good options to look at right now. Good options to have kind of in general. So these are things where you might want to look at those, immediately as a way to kind of get through what's going on currently. But these are solid providers. They're not providers I would recommend to anyone to kind of just use temporarily and then drop. I think you'll find they provide a high level of service at pretty reasonable prices. Any of the ones that I'm talking about here. So worth taking a look at.
Oh, that's great info, Daniel. Thank you for going through that list, because my next question was going to be about LTL and regional carriers. So that's really fantastic. One other
Yeah.
question that comes up, and I don't want to cut into your time if there's a demo portion, but also I know that with BigCommerce, you have a particularly close relationship. Those that go on the enterprise plan get ShipperHQ, certain level of ShipperHQ features with the package baked in for free, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah. So for retailers who are on the BigCommerce Enterprise plan, they get what we call our Essentials plan built into the cost of their BigCommerce subscription. So that's definitely worth taking a look at for any retailer that's on BigCommerce Enterprise. Feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to kind of advise on what the best way to make use of that is. There are also, and this, I'll kind of step outside of my ShipperHQ circle for a second. FedEx and UPS both offer pretty great programs where they will actually pay for certain software and services on your behalf. If those are related to shipping. So the UPS CDP program, FedEx has a very similar program where if you're a kind of a long-term shipper with them, they'll actually give you some money to go out there and spend on things like ShipStation. ShipperHQ is eligible for that, but you can do things like buy label printers, and you can buy scanners and things like that. So there are some good things out there that are worth being aware of that can help you save money on this stuff. The BigCommerce Enterprise bundling, ShipperHQ is a good example of that. But also some of your carriers may offer you some deals that help to defray some of the cost of additional services.
Beautiful. And looks like we do have one other question from the crowd. If I want to sign up for a new account, how is the process and how long does it take?
Sure. Well, I may as well switch over real quick here and show the ShipperHQ dashboard, just so you're kind of a little bit aware of it. So this is the ShipperHQ dashboard. I've got kind of everything turned on here on my account. Some of this stuff is stuff that kind of shows up as needed. So if you're not doing delivery dates, then you won't see this option. If you're not doing dimensional packing, that'll go away. So it'll kind of be a little bit simpler. ShipperHQ.com is the place to start for that. We offer a 30-day free trial. We're actually, for new retailers, like offline retailers looking to move online urgently, or really for anybody else that's kind of currently impacted, we're actually doing a 90-day free period. Just reach out to us. There's a contact form at ShipperHQ.com if that's of interest to you. Really is a way to kind of help people who might need a little bit of extra assistance and might not have extra cash flow at the moment, get up and running. Generally, I'll say with ShipperHQ that the amount of time it takes to get up and running, it can vary based on how complex your setup is. I've got 5 warehouses set up here. I've got 6 carriers I'm connected to. I've got some packing rules and things like that. A configuration like this is probably about a half day's work, and then some testing to make sure it is working correctly. We've got a test tool in here. So in terms of kind of a general rule of thumb, I normally say if you've got all your information together, if you know what carriers you want to offer, if you have the address of your warehouse, if you've got account numbers and whatnot for your carriers and kind of are ready to go, then including testing, you're probably looking at a day or two to set up with ShipperHQ, but that can be much quicker for simpler scenarios. We've got a team that specializes in helping people get up and running, and as part of that 90-day free thing that we're doing right now, we're also doing kind of free setup assistance for anybody that's been put in a tough spot by what's going on. So just reach out to us and we'll be happy to help with that. I think we've done 14 new sites fully up and running since last Saturday. simpler setups, single location, in-store pickup or local delivery type stuff. But it can be very quick to get up and running if you kind of know what you want to accomplish.
Is that a common volume for that amount of time, or is there a bit of a flood right now?
Well, that's specifically people who kind of came in with an urgent need to change
Right.
what they were doing. So in general, with ShipperHQ, we've got 10 to 20 people who kind of go live with us every day. So this was actually on top of that standard number.
Got it.
Well, if there's no other questions, I'll kind of close with just kind of an encouragement to keep your eyes on what's going on, and our message to retailers especially is always that shipping seems particularly one of those areas that can be very daunting to people. It's maybe not something that a retailer has had experience with if they're used to running a physical brick and mortar store. Then they're used to inbound shipments, but they may not be used to kind of the process of outbound shipments. Switching over to offering things like curbside pickup or local delivery can be daunting. But the good news is that most of this stuff can be done without a large investment. It doesn't have to be costly, and it can be up and running very quickly. So we're kind of happy to support anybody that needs our assistance in that, in general, but especially right now. So I'd recommend anybody that's kind of considering that, have a chat with us. Like I said earlier, nobody's giving a hard sales pitch on ShipperHQ, and our goal is to help retailers find solutions that work for them. If that means that we're recommending them to a different solution because that's a better solution for them, we're going to do that. But reach out to us. We're happy to have a chat and happy to kind of help point folks in the right direction if that'll help you be successful.
Well, Daniel, thank you for that. Thank you for all the insights today. We really appreciate the presentation. A lot of good takeaways, just being more well-informed and at least make it less daunting to those of us on the line now that we're a bit more edified about the possibilities of ShipperHQ. To those who joined, thank you for spending time on the call today. And again, we'll be sharing the recording via email. Meredith, thank you so much for orchestrating and for being here today as well. And we look forward to sending folks your way continually. And everyone, please have a safe and healthy weekend, and look forward to following up soon.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thanks a lot, Gene.
Thanks,
Thanks
Gene.
everybody for attending.